Either Oda is trolling us with these identical posters, or we're about to witness the wildest, long-lost father-son reveal since, well, since Garling and Shanks, which was practically yesterday by my standards. All of that is to say, is Rox also Buggy's father, making both Buggy and Blackbeard brothers? To make sense of what seems like bullshit on paper and why it could work, we'll discuss why the long-standing idea of Buggy being Rox's son isn't just a meme, how the Dressrosa arc might have set up this reveal, and why Buggy might not even care that he's Rox's son. Let's get into it. It is about time we stop asking if Buggy is Rox's son, and start asking why this could be the most One Piece twist ever, taking the biggest joke character and turning him into the punchline of a 25-year setup. That's exactly the kind of long game misdirection Oda loves to cook. When you think about it, Buggy's Fujitora-style meteoric rise hasn't followed the typical power scaling path. No Conqueror's Hockey moment yet, no Awakened Fruit yet, no major solo W unless you count surviving Mihawk, which is fair, and yet he is a Yonko with a massive following, with Mihawk and Crocodile on payroll. Plus, he didn't just say he'd find the One Piece, he said it with that top-tier membership level to Shanks' Patreon sauce. You don't get that kind of treatment unless you're endgame important. By One Piece standards, that is not a joke, that is a statement, and by the end of the day, one of the best signs of being a great pirate isn't just strength, it's leaving your mark on the world. So sure, Buggy's career is mostly a series of misfires, misinterpretations, and misattributions, but that's what makes him so interesting. His chaos isn't planned, it's reactive, spreading through luck, coincidence, and circumstances. You throw Buggy in a situation and somehow reality shifts to make him one of the top 4 pirates in the world. The man is just a living glitch in the system. Contrast that with Blackbeard, whose chaos is entirely deliberate. He makes moves in silence, he infiltrates Whitebeard's crew, baits Ace, steals 2 Devil Fruits, recruits the worst of Impel Down, and takes over Hachinosu Island. He manufactures power vacuums and exploits them. Buggy falls into chaos, while Blackbeard plans for it. So if Rox did have more than one child, maybe the point isn't about leaving a lasting imprint on the world in the traditional sense, it's a fallout. Rox didn't leave behind a guiding will like Roger. What he might have left behind is something messier, a myth, an aftershock. And whether they know it or not, Blackbeard and Buggy could be growing into the void he left behind. Blackbeard channels the ambition and brutality of Rox, while Buggy may as well reflect the disruption and absurdity of Rox. They wouldn't be necessarily inheriting a legacy, they might just be embodying the chaos of a man whose name is so dangerous that the world government had to hit Control-Alt-Delete on his entire existence like it's the Epstein files. And that's what makes the theory click. Rox's influence doesn't need to be a roadmap, it functions more like a ripple, unpredictable, unstable, and still reshaping the seas through people who don't even fully realize they're part of the pattern. Oda doesn't show visual clues without a reason, so seeing Rox's face right after Buggy jumps in for the One Piece, and noticing that Rox's bounty poster looks almost the same as Buggy's, it's probably not a coincidence, not definitive proof maybe, but it definitely feels like a setup. And if this is Oda planting something big, then Dressrosa might have been the practice round, the first time he tested out the kind of story we're about to see unfold in Elbaf. Okay, buckle up. This might sound like I'm connecting dots that aren't there, but hear me out. Because to understand how the idea of Buggy and Blackbeard being half-brothers might actually hold water, we gotta zoom out, like all the way back to Dressrosa. I know it sounds like a detour, but this is where Oda quietly laid down the template for something much bigger. A recurring pattern about the impact of history, fractured families, and brothers shaped by the chaos around them. And if that sounds too abstract, let's ground it. In Dressrosa, we had Doflamingo and Rosinante, otherwise known as Corazon, blood brothers who couldn't be more different. Doflamingo inherited the Celestial Dragon mentality of cruelty and power, using it to dominate and manipulate Dressrosa. Rosinante walked away from it entirely, trying to break the cycle of violence, hatred, and the pursuit of power that defined his brother by saving Law. But beyond just their ideology, there was a visual cue that stood out: his tragic clown fit. The perfect cover. It's ridiculous enough to lower guards, but low-key the realist representation of how it feels to smile through watching your older brother commit crimes against humanity. Fast forward to Elbaf, and we're seeing something very similar with Hardrauden and Loki. Another fractured brother-like dynamic. One is aligned with honors and principles, advocating for solidarity among giants, The other is a professional shitster hung up on childhood resentment and mother issues. Loki is named after the trickster god, has theatrical flair, and a birthmark that his mother used to label him as cursed. He is literally a social outcast with a god complex. Does that kind of sound familiar? Because Buggy is built similarly, with his nose like Loki's eyes, marking him as a freak of nature, from what I assume since birth. His clown persona, much like Rosinante's, hides a deeper yet ironic symbolism in his character, and where Rosinante tries to break a cycle of chaos, Buggy unintentionally embodies it. His rise is just full of chaos and spectacle and stumbling into power he was never meant to have, but that's exactly what makes him work. And if we're comparing characters, let's not skip over the ambition angle. In Dressrosa, Hadrudin competed at the Colosseum to win the Mare no Mi, the fruit Ace left behind when he died, believing that power would let him earn the title of King of the Giants. Meanwhile, Blackbeard, using Burgess as a proxy, wanted the same fruit because the man is in his Pokemon training arc trying to catch them all. Now flip back to Doflamingo. I mean, I don't think there's much to say between him and Blackbeard that we don't already know at this point. They're fucking assholes who treat other people like tools. Think about this. Hadrudin showed up in Dressrosa with Burgess, who acted as Blackbeard's stand-in. Now he's back in Elbaf just when we find out that Rox is Blackbeard's dad in Harold's flashback. These aren't just random callbacks. I believe Oda is carefully stacking characters and storylines to create connections. So, what happens when you make those connections? Doflamingo and Rosinante, Hadrudin and Loki, Blackbeard and Buggy, and maybe your mouse clicking that like button and subscribing to the channel if you're enjoying this theory video so far. Each pair signifies a break in family history, the point where family ties divide into ideology. In each case, the brothers represent a crossroads, domination or disruption, control or chaos. And no, that is not a shadow joke, that just happened that way. It honestly makes the idea of Buggy and Blackbeard being half-brothers seem more believable. That way, when the big reveal finally happens, probably much later, it'll feel natural, like a no shit Sherlock moment. But at the end of the day, how would Buggy feel about all of this? So let's say the theory holds up, that Buggy and Blackbeard are both sons of Rox Xebec. The natural next question isn't just, what does this mean for the story? It's, what does Buggy do with this information? Because let's be real, Oda doesn't tend to do shock value just for shock value. He does the, oh shit, that's why that random panel from September whatever the fuck 2008 where Luffy got jerked off mattered approach. Instead, he'd do it because it matters to Buggy's growth. So what I think would make this reveal interesting beyond just Buggy being tied to one of the most legendary pirates in One Piece history is that he wants absolutely nothing to do with Rox. In a series packed with characters trying to make a name for themselves, Buggy's entire arc has been about surviving, failing upward, and rejecting the traditional ideas of GOAT status, whether intentional or not. That's the irony. If Buggy turns out to be the son of the most feared pirate in history, it wouldn't elevate him, it would challenge him. He didn't just become a Yonko by intentionally embracing power or the connections he had with Roger and Shanks. He got there through the divine comedy of narrative convenience. In other words, shit just happened. Meanwhile, Blackbeard's whole mission is legacy. He's actively trying to finish what Rox started, taking over the world. Dude is an attention-seeking whore with geopolitical consequences on his mind. Buggy couldn't be more different. Well, let's just imagine that the peak of Buggy's character development is when he discovers he's Rox's son. What do you think his first reaction would be? Probably more than likely, he'd be outraged, because that would confirm what he's always been insecure about, besides his nose, namely that he's not truly strong and is essentially a coward. It's safe to say that the legacy of bigger names like Roger and Shanks has always haunted Buggy, but when the world went into a frenzy after Roger's death, Buggy expected Shanks to take the mantle, to become the Pirate King and bring him along. Instead, Shanks walked away. He just took his time. Shanks still became a Yonko anyway, while Buggy was taking it easy in the East Blue. So imagine the fury when Buggy finds out that he also shares blood with Rox Xebec, another major legend. Because that would mean that every headline, every bounty that he's gotten, every rise to the next level in his pirate career wasn't really his. He'd just be another guy who got lucky thanks to his genes. But that's the pivot. This could be his whole character arc, where we finally realize that Buggy didn't want that kind of greatness. Yes, the same guy who talks about wanting to be flashy all the time. I imagine deep down he doesn't want to be like Roger or Shanks, probably not even Rox. He would just want to be Buggy, a clown who somehow got this far on his own terms. And for once, it wouldn't be a joke. It would be the most honest thing he's ever expressed. Where the world keeps trying to define him by proximity to greatness, he wants to prove he's more than just a side character in someone else's story. And ironically, that's exactly what makes him great. That said, people do actually follow him, some generally. Even figures like Mihawk and Crocodile, who are anything but naive, chose to build something around him. And while it's not that Buggy avoids playing the godlike figure, he does definitely lean into it when necessary, yet he rarely, if ever, seems to buy into his own hype. That tension between the image and the man behind it feels central to his story. His story isn't about trying to reclaim a huge legacy like Rox's, if that connection does exist, like what Blackbeard's doing. If anything, he might end up having to contend with the idea of that legacy, because if Buggy does turn out to be connected to Rox, it'll be something that pulls him into the conversation whether he wants it or not. And based on how we've seen him handle other moments of unexpected fame, there's a good chance that he'd go along with it as long as it benefits him, but never fully accepts it. That would track with everything we've seen so far. Someone who, until now, doesn't seek power for its own sake, but adjusts when power comes to him. And that adaptability might be his strongest skill in the quest to find the One Piece, especially if that journey starts dragging in ghosts from the past like Rox and the legends he admired, as mentioned in chapter 1155, where he name drops Davy Jones right in front of Emu. And that might not be a throwaway line. It could be a major clue about the secret behind Emu's powers. So if you're curious about how Davy Jones might be connected to Emu through a devil fruit, watch this video next.
I'm aiming the album to fall off, it's pretty ironic.